Welcome everyone. Let us see the topic maintenance of pregnancy and embryonic development of lesson 2 in zoology, namely human reproduction. Before entering the topic, let us recall the structure of the blastula. So already we know the structure of the blastula. Blastula is spherical in shape and it is containing a single layer of uniform size and shaped cells, what is called as the trophoblast. And internally the blastula contains a cavity known as the blastocele, and the blastocele is filled by a fluid known as blastocelic fluid or blastocelic jelly. Inside there is a mass of cells what are called as the embryoblast. This embryoblast is going to get differentiated into epiblast and the hypoblast after the implantation. So implantation is nothing but a process by which getting the attachment with the uterine wall of the endometrium. Such a process is called as implantation. So at the time of implantation or after implantation, these inner mass cells, namely embryoblast, are going to get divided into two types, namely epiblast and hypoblast. So the epiblast cells later it's going to get converted to the ectoderm, and the hypoblast cells they are going to get converted into the endoderm. So the cells remaining in between the ectoderm and the endoderm forms the mesoderm. So thereby another layer occurring in between ectoderm and endoderm forms the mesoderm. So thus conversion of this single layer blastula into triple layer gastrula is a process called as gastrulation. So the triple layer gastrula is nothing but the externally ectoderm and internally endoderm, in between them is said to be the mesoderm. So that the embryonic stage, namely blastula with single layer, later it is converted into a triple layer gastrula. Such a process is called as gastrulation. So this gastrulation is brought out by the movement of cells here and there. Such a movement is called as morphogenetic movement. So with the morphogenetic movement, the blastula is converted into the gastrula. The next is said to be the organogenesis. So organogenesis is nothing but a process of formation of organs from the three germ layers, namely ectoderm, mesoderm and the endoderm. So formation of organs from these germ layers, they gives rise to specific tissues, organs and organ systems. So various type of tissues and the different organs and the organ systems usually forms from these three germ layers. Such a process of formation of organs is called as organogenesis. Later the embryo is usually covered by certain embryonic membranes. So namely amnion, allantois, chorion and the yolk sac. So these four happen to be the extra embryonic membranes in human beings. So the function of these embryonic membranes is used to protect the embryo from desiccation. Desiccation in the sense preventing from getting dried. And also these embryonic membranes acts as the mechanical shock absorber, and also they are responsible for absorption of nutrients, and also they are responsible for exchanging of the gases. So the first embryonic membrane is happen to be amnion. So amnion is a double layered translucent membrane filled with amniotic fluid. Now this is happen to be the embryo, and the embryo is usually covered by the first membrane, what is known as amnion, which is double in nature, inner as well as outer. So thus the amnion is said to be the first membrane covering the embryo, and usually it has a cavity called as the amniotic cavity. So from the wall of the amnion until the embryo, the cavity is known as the amniotic cavity, which is filled by the amniotic fluid. And this amniotic fluid is responsible for keeping the buoyancy, and also it protects the developing embryo from injuries, and also they are responsible for regulation of the temperature, and also it provides a medium in which the fetus can move. So all these functions are brought out by the first protective membrane known as amnion. And the second is happen to be the yolk sac. So the yolk sac forms a part of the gut and is the source of the earliest blood cells and the blood vessels. So the second is happen to be the yolk sac, and usually this forms a part of the alimentary canal or the gut, and also they are responsible for the earliest blood vessels and the blood cells. The third membrane is happen to be allantois. So the allantois forms a small out pocketing of the embryonic tissue at the caudal end of the yolk sac. So at the caudal end of the yolk sac, the allantois forms a thick outpocketing of the embryonic tissue, and this is structural base for the umbilical cord. So this allantois is also meant for the structural base for the umbilical cord, and it is also links the embryo to the placenta, and ultimately it becomes the part of the urinary bladder. So the allantois is responsible for the formation of the urinary bladder of the individual. And the last layer is said to be the chorion. So the chorion is the outermost membrane which encloses the embryo. So completely the embryo is covered by the last membrane, what is called as the chorion, and thus it also covers all other membranes. So the chorion is covering the embryo, amnion, yolk sac, and the allantois, and so the embryo and all other membranes, and also helps in the formation of the placenta. So from the chorion, the placenta is also said to be formed. Already we know the blastula has certain trophoblast cells peripherally. So these trophoblast cells of the blastocysts send certain several finger-like projections called as the chorionic villi. So this is said to be the chorionic villi, and this chorionic villi is usually formed from the trophoblast of the blastocyst. And the chorionic villi carrying fetal blood and are surrounded by sinuses that contains the maternal blood. So usually they carry the fetal blood, and this fetal blood is usually enclosed by the sinuses of the maternal blood. The maternal blood in the sense the mother's blood. And also the chorionic villi and the uterine tissues forms a disc-shaped placenta. So the chorionic villi and the uterine tissues forms a disc-shaped structure, what is called as a placenta. So placenta can be defined as a temporary endocrine organ, so formed during the time of pregnancy, and it connects the fetus to the uterine wall through the umbilical cord. So placenta is nothing but an organ whereby it connects the fetus and the mother through a cord-like structure called as the umbilical cord. Here the umbilical cord is shown, so that is the connection from the mother and the fetus. So umbilical cord is the organ by which the nutritive, respiratory, and excretory functions are fulfilled. So all the three important vital functions, namely nutrition, respiration, exchange of gases, and also the excretion, is brought out by the presence of the umbilical cord in between the fetus and the mother. The embryo's heart develops during the 4th week of pregnancy, and circulation of blood through the umbilical cord and placenta as well as through its own tissue. So this also is carried out by the placenta. After formation of the heart after the 4th week, the circulation of the blood is also carried through the umbilical cord. The primary germ layers, as we all know, ectoderm, mesoderm, and the endoderm, are responsible for the formation of the primitive tissues from which various organs and organ systems develops. So the ectoderm gives rise to the central nervous system. From the ectodermal cells, the central nervous system are formed. Central nervous system in the sense formation of brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system also gets formed. The cranial nerves and the spinal nerves also get formed from the ectodermal cells, and epidermis and its derivatives, particularly the mammary glands, also usually form from the ectodermal cells. And the mesodermal cells gives rise to the connective tissues, cartilage, bones, muscles, organs of urinogenital system, particularly the kidneys, ureters, and the gonads. So these are raised from the mesodermal cells. And lastly, the endodermal cells. The endodermal derivatives are epithelium of gastrointestinal and respiratory tract, liver, pancreas, thyroid, and parathyroids. Usually these organs develops from the endodermal cells. Human pregnancy lasts for about 280 days or nearly 40 weeks. So this 280 days or the 40 weeks is known as the gestation period. So this question you may get in 1 mark point of view. The gestation period of human beings is happen to be 280 days or 40 weeks. So by this time the embryo is going to get developed in the mother's womb. So that period is known as the gestation period. And it can be divided for our convenience into 3 trimesters of 3 months each, namely first trimester, the second trimester, and the third trimester. So this trimester we are going to see in the next slide. Here the first trimester is known as the main period of organogenesis. Mainly all the organs used to develop by this 3-month stage. So that is very important among the all the trimesters, namely the first trimester. Here there is a picture shown. So it has been divided into the first trimester, the second trimester and the third trimester, 3 months each, and also it is indicated by weeks also. So the body organs, namely heart, limbs, lungs, liver and external genital organs are well developed during this trimester. By the end of the second trimester, the face is well formed with features like eyelids, the eyelashes, eyes starts to blink and the body is covered with fine hair. Muscle tissue develops and also bones become harder in nature. And the last trimester is the third trimester, in which the fetus is fully developed and is ready for the delivery by the end of the 9 months. So all these happen to be the trimester and the complete development of the human embryo. Already we know that the placenta acts as a temporary endocrine gland during the time of pregnancy, and also it is responsible for the production of certain hormones. The hormones produced by the placenta happen to be human chorionic gonadotropin, shortly it is known as HCG, and human chorionic somatomammotropin, shortly it is HCS, or human placental lactogen, HPL. Estrogens and progesterone are the hormones produced from the placenta, which are essential for the normal pregnancy. These hormones play a vital role for the normal pregnancy. And a hormone called relaxin is also secreted during the later phase of the pregnancy, which is helping in relaxation of the pelvic ligaments at the time of parturition. So the pelvic ligaments has to get relaxed, so that relaxation is brought out by the hormone known as relaxin at the time of parturition. So parturition is nothing but the childbirth. So it should be noted that the HCG, HPL and relaxin are produced only during the time of pregnancy. So no other time it is produced. So in addition, during pregnancy, the level of other hormones like estrogen and progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, etc. is increased several folds in the maternal blood. So the hormones, namely progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, will get increased in case of the mother's blood. And these hormones are essential for supporting also for the fetal development. So these hormones also play an important role for the growth of the fetus. So the next is happen to be parturition and lactation. So parturition is nothing but, in simple words, it is childbirth. So parturition is the completion of pregnancy and giving birth to the young one or the baby. So the series of events that expels the infant from the uterus is collectively called as labor. So even this question you may get in 2-mark point of view. Define labor. A series of events that expels the baby from the uterus is known as labor. So from the uterus, the baby has to expel out. Such a process is called as the labor. Throughout pregnancy, the uterus undergoes periodic episodes of weak and strong contractions. So the uterus undergoes a series of contractions. Such a contraction is usually called as Braxton-Hicks contractions. So even this question is very important from 2-mark point of view. So define Braxton-Hicks contractions, which is nothing but the uterus undergoes a periodic episodes of weak and strong contractions. So these contractions are called as Braxton-Hicks contractions that may lead to false labor. As the pregnancy progresses, increase in the estrogen concentration promotes the uterine contractions. So once when pregnancy is going on, progressing, the amount of estrogen concentration will also increases, and this increase of estrogen also causes the uterus to contract. These uterine contractions facilitate molding of the fetus and downward movement of the fetus. So this estrogen is responsible for molding the shape of the fetus and also take the baby in the downward movement. The descendant of the fetus causes the dilation of the cervix. So once when the fetus is being carried downwards, the cervix of the uterus starts to get dilated, And the vaginal canal also results in a neurohumoral reflex called fetal ejection reflex or Ferguson reflex. So this question also we may get in 2-mark point of view. So thereby neurohumoral reflex occurs, so thereby the female fetus will get ejected. Such a reflex is called as Ferguson reflex. So here the adenohypophysis and the neurohypophysis is shown. Oxytocin is secreted and which just reaches the uterus, and the cervix of the uterus gets relaxed or dilated, thereby the child will be expelled out. That initiates the secretion of the oxytocin from the neurohypophysis, which in turn brings about the powerful contraction of the uterine muscles and leads to expulsion of the baby through the birth canal. So that the amount of oxytocin is responsible for bringing the powerful contractions of the uterus, thereby the baby will be expelled out through the birth canal. So the sequence of event is known as parturition or the childbirth. So that the baby completely will be expelled out through the vagina. So placenta and the corpus luteum also produces another hormone called as relaxin. So this relaxin hormone promotes parturition. So this promotes the parturition by relaxing the pelvic joints and dilation of the cervix. So the hormone relaxin is responsible for relaxing the pelvic joints as well as it brings the dilation of the cervix with a continued powerful contractions. So by the contraction of these muscles, the cervix gets dilated and the amnion ruptures and the amniotic fluid flows out through the vagina followed by the fetus. So that the amnion gets ruptured out, the amniotic fluid flows out through the vagina, which is followed by the fetus. And the placenta along with the remains of the umbilical cord is called as the afterbirth. So the placenta and the other accessory substances are called as the afterbirth, which is also expelled out after the delivery. The next is said to be lactation. So lactation is a production of milk by the mammary glands. The mammary glands show certain changes during every menstrual cycle, during pregnancy as well as during the time of lactation. So the mammary glands undergo certain changes of menstrual cycle time as well as during the time of pregnancy and during the period of lactation. The increased level of estrogens, progesterone and human placental lactogen towards the end of pregnancy stimulates the hypothalamus towards prolactin releasing factors. Thereby the anterior pituitary gland is responsible for producing the hormone called as the prolactin or lactogenic hormone, which plays a major role in the lactogenesis. So oxytocin brings also another important reflex known as let down reflex. So let down reflex is nothing but the actual ejection of milk from the alveoli of the mammary glands. So this question we may get in 2-mark point of view. Define let down reflex, which is nothing but the actual ejection of milk or release of milk from the alveoli from the mammary glands. So during lactation, oxytocin also stimulates the recently emptied uterus to contract, helping it to bring to its original shape and size. So also this oxytocin plays a vital role in bringing the uterus to its normal size and shape. So these two important functions are brought out by the oxytocin. So production of the milk as well as to bring the uterus to its original shape and size. Next is colostrum. So colostrum, a nutrient-rich fluid produced by the human female immediately after giving birth. So immediately after the childbirth, the mother produces a liquid called as colostrum. So this colostrum is loaded with immune, growth and tissue repair factors. So these vital functions are carried out by the fluid called as the colostrum. So this colostrum acts as a natural antimicrobial agent and to keep the active stimulation of the maturation of the infant's immunity system, so that the infant's immunity system also is activated by the colostrum. So no artificial feed can substitute the first milk. So this is very important. So there is no substitute for the first milk, namely the colostrum, with all its natural benefits, and therefore should be definitely fed to the baby after birth. So that definitely should be fed to the baby immediately after the birth. The mammary gland secretes yellow fluid called as colostrum, during the initial few days after parturition. It has less lactose than milk and almost no fat, but it contains more proteins, vitamin A and minerals. So it contains very less lactose than the usual milk and also no fat. The fat content is meager or very less. So it contains more proteins, vitamin A as well as minerals. So colostrum is also very rich in IgA immunoglobulin A antibodies. These antibodies are responsible for protection of the infant's digestive tract against the bacterial infection. So there should not be any bacterial infections in the digestive tract. So that is also brought out by the antibody, namely IgA, which is present in the colostrum. So breast milk is the ideal food for infants as it contains all the constituents in the suitable concentration and is easily digestible. So this is very important. So the colostrum is also usually it is easily digestible. It is fully sufficient till about 6 months of age, and all infants must be breastfed by mother to ensure that the growth of the healthy baby. So it is very compulsory, at least till 6 months the baby has to be fed by the mother's breast milk. Such a thing is usually very important for the growth of the healthy baby. So with that, the topic is getting over, and regarding the other topics we'll see in the next videos. Thank you.